Welcome to the Irresistible You podcast. This is the place to get a dose of empowerment to create the life you crave and deserve. My name is Amy with 2 E's, and I am the CEO and founder of Irresistible University. Through my podcast and courses, I teach women just like you how to ditch the body image issues, gain confidence, and lose the emotional weight to look and feel irresistible at any size. If you like the podcast, you're going to love my online course and soon to be private podcast. If you would like to learn more about it, including the investment, everything that you get as a student, read real client testimonials, and to snag your seat and sign up and enroll, please head over to irresistibleicing.com/course. That link is also in the show notes. Welcome back to episode 243. In today's episode, we are talking about self-love and weight loss. It is the month of love. It is February. It is Valentine's Day is right around the corner. And so it's always an appropriate time of year on this podcast, on the Irresistible You podcast, to dive into self-love. And you know, a large part of this content that you listen to here or you watch here is embedded in self-love. And so what I want to address first is that weight loss is not a prerequisite for self-love. You don't need to weigh a certain number. You don't need to be in a certain size jeans. You don't need to look a certain type of way in order to be worthy of self-love. Self-love, everybody thinks like, oh, well, when I get to my goal weight, when I look like this, then I'll love myself. Then I'll work on that. Like we tend to like isolate it and put it over here in a silo and say, I'll get to that later and compartmentalize it. Where, quite frankly, we have to have self-love in order to lose weight, in order to keep the weight off. All of us here, including myself, know how to lose weight from self-hatred because we've all done it. We know how to hate ourselves down the scale. We know how to beat ourselves up. We know how to lose weight from a place of hate. We know how to desperate diet because we hate our bodies so much. We are all experts at that. We know how to do that. And clearly, if self-hate worked, I wouldn't be recording this podcast because I wouldn't have to tell the stories, right? And you wouldn't be listening to this podcast because it wouldn't even be a thing. So you have to challenge yourself to do something different. Because if you keep doing the things that you've always done, you're going to get what you always got, right? And losing weight from a place of hatred, from the dreaded, oh my God, I saw this picture of me and I just couldn't take it anymore. Yeah, that can be motivational, but most times we're coming at it from an unhealthy place of hating ourselves so much, being so disgusted with what we are and what we look like, that we think that's the key, right? If I love myself, it means I accept myself. And if I accept myself, then I like myself at this weight. And if I like myself at this weight, why would I want to change that? Or what would motivate me to want to change, right? And I want you to think about anytime you're struggling with self-love, I want you to think about the relationships that you have with other people, right? Think about the relationship you have with the closest people, right? Your husband, your wife, your partner, your kids. And what is the common denominator in those relationships? It's unconditional love, right? There is nothing my children could do or say to me that would ever cause me to stop loving them or to love them less. Now, if they come home and they've done something at school and they've been bad or they've made a mistake, like, you know, even when they're adults, am I going to be upset with them, with their behavior? Yes. Am I going to feel disappointed in them? Yes. Will I stop loving them and trying to build them up and help them grow from it? No, I'm always going to be there and I'm always going to love them no matter what they do. But you have to have boundaries also, right? Like We have to have boundaries in our relationships. We have to have boundaries with ourselves. And part of self-love is having boundaries. And so we're going to get into what self-love looks like, but I want you to just understand you can have self-love just because. There is no prerequisite needed. At your weight you are right now, whether that's your highest weight, your in-between weight, your lowest weight, whatever it is, whatever that number is on the scale today, you have to get into the practice of loving yourself. And we talked about unconditional love. So what is self-love? It's very, very simple. It is the relationship you have with yourself, the unconditional loving relationship you have with yourself. That is what self-love is. We often think, oh, self-love is like going to get a pedicure. Self-love is getting our nails done. Self-love is taking me time to go to the, shopping. Yes, girl, all that is like under the umbrella, but that is surface level. We're not talking about surface level self-love right now. We're going a little bit deeper, and that deeper part is the unconditional loving relationship you have with yourself. What does that mean? What is the relationship? What is the relationship I have with myself? What are you talking about? The relationship you have with yourself is also very simple. It is how you think, feel, and act to yourself with yourself. How you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, and how you act. Because how you think and how you feel will drive and dictate how you act. And under the act umbrella is how we talk, our behavior towards ourselves, the actions that we take, the behaviors that we do, the habits that we create. That is the relationship. The relationship is how we think, feel, and act. And self-love comes down to creating an unconditional, loving relationship with yourself. Not about anybody else. This is all about you, okay? So we think about, what is self-love? It's the things that I said, right? It's going to the salon. It's doing all this and that. And yes, again, those things do and should come out of self-love and wanting to do those things, but taking it back a step, okay? And I just said this and I'm going to say it again. What are acts of self-love? Tell me what the acts of self-love are. Okay, so number one is boundaries. Boundaries with yourself. The boundaries that you have for yourself personally, right? So for example, the boundaries that I have with myself around food. The boundaries that I have around myself with staying up too late. The boundaries that I have with myself about how I talk to myself. It can also be the boundaries that we have with other people, what we tolerate, what we allow. And let me tell you something. How we treat ourselves is how other people will treat us. Okay? Everybody talks about when they start losing weight, how they don't feel invisible anymore. They feel like people are noticing them, or they're opening the doors, they're complimenting you. And I'm not talking about people that see you every day. I'm talking about strangers, right? And never base your validity and worth on strangers. But I want to prove a point here. I've also noticed this in the past, and I've noticed it now that I've gotten under Wonderland and I have felt less invisible. I have definitely gotten more stares or looks or compliments when I'm at the store. And is it because fat people are invisible to the world? Is it because fat women are not thought of as attractive? And I don't think that's the case, because I know people that could be twice my weight that are super confident, super beautiful, can just walk in a room and own it. So I think what happens is as we come down the scale and we learn to treat ourselves better and we're building on that self-love as the scale's going down, instead of hating ourselves down the scale, right? I think our attitude and our aura and our energy changes. So I don't think it's always the weight loss. I think it's the attitude change. You're losing the toxicity as you go down the scale. You're losing the hatred that you had of yourself. And so you'll say, Amy, you're telling me I have to love myself now in order to lose weight, but I don't. I hate my body. I hate what I look like. I hate this fat. I just want to cut these fat rolls off of my body and be done with it. And what I'm saying is, it's not going to come easy. You aren't going to have this madly passionate in love with yourself moment right now. It takes work. It takes work. But you have to be committed to saying, okay, I want to lose weight. I also want to stop hating myself. How do I do this? And so while you're starting to lose weight, you're also working on the self-love component, right? How to treat yourself better, how to talk to yourself better, how to show up for yourself, right? You're learning those things at the same time. So while you may not have the self-love that you could have 6 months from now, just like you won't have the weight that you want, or your weight will be different in 6 months, right? It takes you working on it, because weight loss cannot just be about eat less, move more. It cannot just be about those two things. It can't. So thinking about acts of self-love, going back to boundaries, we covered that. You have to have boundaries in place. That is an act of self-love, because when I don't love myself, I have no boundaries. I let people treat me however they want to treat me. I let people walk all over me. I don't stick up for myself. I don't put my foot down. I don't do those things because I'm afraid of what other people might think or say because of my size. So I don't set boundaries. And also, it's not setting boundaries with yourself. It's like, I'm going to eat what I want to eat, when I want to eat, and can nobody tell me nothing. That's all wrapped up in entitled inner fat girl syndrome. We talk about that all the time here too. So boundaries. Number one, that is an act of self-love. That is beyond the surface. That is what we're really talking about. Another act of self-love is going to the doctor. I know this sounds crazy, but taking care of our bodies, not just what we're putting in our mouth, but going to the doctor at our highest weight, going to the doctor when we are terrified to get on the scale, and showing up and taking care of ourselves and our body. Going to the doctor is a very vulnerable thing, right? It's a very vulnerable act, but it is also an act of self-love. It is not easy. Right? It is not easy, especially when you know there might be something wrong, or I might get a bad report, or they're going to find the thing. It's better to face that head on and have a plan than to wait and then it's too late. You know what I'm saying? So an act of self-love is picking up the phone and making that appointment that you've been putting off because you think you're too big. And if you have a doctor who puts you down, who blames everything on your weight, who judges you because of your weight, find a new doctor. Find a new doctor. There are a million other doctors that you could go to. Find the person that you jive with. Find the person that just, isn't going to make you feel bad about things, right? Standing up for yourself is another act of self-love. It kind of falls under the category of boundaries, but standing up for yourself and saying something, whether it's something about yourself or it's someone else that you see an injustice. So, for example, this could be so simple. It's your food comes out and you're on a weight loss journey, right? And so you ask for your sandwich to have no mayo because you are trying to really, be conscious of your choices. So, and you get a Diet Coke. So your sandwich comes out and it's got mayo and it's a Diet Coke. I mean, it's a real Coke. And you know this, you notice it immediately, but you're terrified to say something because your thought is, oh my God, if I say I didn't want mayonnaise on this, they're going to roll their eyes and they're going to think, what difference does it make, fat ass? That's what you think. That's where the mind goes. Our mind goes there because at some point, somebody said it, insinuated it, or we said it about ourselves. So we've got this fear of that if I stand up for myself, especially with food, it's going to backfire. They're going to judge me. They're going to say something nasty, and I can't stomach that pain. I just can't do it, right? Or, ordering your food. Let's say you're ordering a number one, wherever, fast food, and you're with a Diet Coke, and you're like all shy about saying Diet Coke. I've been drinking Diet Coke. Diet Pepsi's my thing. Diet Coke is like, I call everything Coke, but it's actually Diet Pepsi. And I give the habit of saying, can I get a Diet Coke when I go to a restaurant? Like, is Diet Pepsi okay? And I'm like, yes, even better. I am Diet Pepsi all day long, like all day long. I'd much rather have Diet Pepsi, Team Pepsi. So, but what I'm getting at is when you go out to eat and you're like all shy, like you're ordering something that's not necessarily quote unquote healthy, but then you're getting it with a side of Diet Coke. And because of the fat jokes that you've heard before, you have no confidence in saying that. Or worse, you cave and you order the real soda because you're so afraid of being judged. Let me tell you something right now. That little shit waitress or waiter that's treating you like shit or is going to say something bad about you, or you've built this story up and maybe they're the nicest person in the world and we're just building a story that we think they might. Let me build the story because it protects, this is what we think. It protects me in case they say the thing, right? But let me tell you something right now, okay? Back to that doctor's appointment. Back to that number on the scale. That person standing in front of you has nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with your journey. They are an order taker that fell into your path today. They are not the ones who have to face the music. They are not the ones that have to deal with the consequences. They are not the ones who are not going to feel good if they don't take better care of their body. So put some damn boundaries around how you stand up for yourself. And if they got your order wrong, you don't have to be afraid, like, oh my God, I'm going to be a Karen and they're going to film me on social media. There is so many ways to elegantly and kindly say, hey, I know, I ordered this. I asked for no mayo and I noticed that there's some mayo on it. Do you think you could help me out here? That's it. I went out to eat a couple months ago. It was during the holidays with Kat. We were going to the Nutcracker and we went to go have sushi dinner before the Nutcracker. And let me tell you, our sushi, it was kitchen rolls, like they aren't supposed to be raw and they're supposed to be warm, and it came out cold. And I felt like, oh my God, I have to be that person. But like, I'm paying a lot of money for this meal. And I'm not going to sit here and eat cold food that shouldn't be cold. Have respect for yourself. And I want you to think about, other people have no problem telling you what to do. They have no problem speaking up on your behalf, like about you when you mess something up. So always remember that. So stand up for yourself. Stand up for other people when it's necessary, especially now. Like, please. Also, another act of self-love is taking up space. I know you feel like embarrassed because of your body. You feel ashamed because of your size. How did I let myself get this big, right? And so you think by staying quiet, you think by being all meek and mild and hunching over and putting your head on you see how my voice just changed because I'm like hunched over and I'm like, yeah, can I get a Diet Coke with that? And you think by like hunching over, looking at the ground, not like you're somehow making yourself feel smaller. It's a psychological thing that we do. Everyone can see you. Unless people are blind, everyone in the room can see you. So I would rather stand here and own who the fuck I am and take up the space that I need to take up with my big ass hips and do it confidently and proudly Then just no, stop. That stops today. Take up the space that you need to take up in the world. The best example I have of this is on the damn airplane. I have been so big before that, going down the aisle with my big ass hips, girl, like hitting, I feel like I'm knocking people in the head with my hips, and it's so embarrassing. And I would just be like, doing the shuffle down the aisle and then getting to the seat and trying to make myself, make my 250-pound self at the time, like make myself shrink down into the chair, like flap myself up against the window. So now I'm uncomfortable because I'm like becoming one with the window so that Bob, the businessman next to me, doesn't feel disgusted or doesn't feel imposed on. I'm done. We're all done with that, right? So we try to physically, like, almost like a roly-poly, right? We try to physically contort our body so that we don't offend anybody else. Take up the space you need to take up. Take it up. And don't apologize for it. Excuse me. No. This is an act of self-love, because when you do these things, you are teaching yourself, I'm worth a damn. And as a result, you're building a loving relationship with yourself. Back to boundaries. Boundaries around how you think about yourself. Boundaries around what you say to yourself. Because how we think becomes how we feel, and how we feel becomes how we act, and how we act, think, feel, and act is the entire relationship with ourselves. That is it. That's it. So if we don't fix those things, we're not going to have an unconditional loving relationship with ourselves. And every time you get on the scale, it is an opportunity to change the relationship you have with yourself. Every time you make a decision about food that feels hard, that feels like, why is this happening to me? Why is it so hard for me to stop thinking about food? Every time you make that decision in your favor for your future self, that is self-love. So another act of self-love is operating from your future self and not your current self. Your current self is entitled, selfish, always gets what they want, and wants what they want and gets what they want. Like, I think of it, we talk about in the course all the time, as the entitled fat girl syndrome, right? Or the fat girl identity. And it's like, I want to eat that, and I'm going to eat it now. Can't nobody tell me nothing, and I want it. I just want it, and I deserve it. And we never stop the cycle. That was really loud. We never stop the cycle and say, you know what? I don't have to have this right now. Something that has helped me tremendously over the years with weight loss is saying to myself, you can have this, just not right now. And a light bulb just went off as I said it, because I recall now how much I say this all the time to my daughter. My daughter has type 1 diabetes. And so we believe in child first, diabetes second. You can eat what you want within moderation, obviously, but we're not going to deny our daughter, cake at a birthday party or ice cream at the park or whatever the example is. We provide the right amount of insulin for it, and we allow her to have those things. But there are times when her blood sugar is already running high, let's say over 300, which is extremely high. And I will say to her, I love you. I want you to have this. I really do. I really do. But right now, I have to get your blood sugar down. Because the thing is, if you give someone with high blood sugar something that is very sugary, like an ice cream or a cake, you're going to be fighting the high the rest of the day. It is so hard to bring that down. So let's get you down in a healthy range in the next hour or so, and then we can revisit. That is also the technique that I've used with myself to say, I know you want this caramel Cadbury egg. Girl. Oh my God. The caramel Cadbury eggs that come out this time of year are such a weakness. I love them. I just love them. Um, ugh. Anyway, I will say to myself, you can have this, you just can't have it right now. So let's say I allow myself to have one treat a day, like let's just use a caramel egg as an example. I am not eating caramel eggs every day. No, that's not happening. But let's just pretend, okay? And so I want it at lunchtime because I've got a sweet tooth. I'm on my period. I just want it when I want it because I deserve it. It's like, listen, I know you want it. You can have it. You just can't have it right now because tonight, when the kids go to sleep and all the kitchen is put away and you're ready to just relax and read a book on your Kindle or whatever, you're going to want that egg. And then that means you've got to fight the urge, fight the craving, or you're going to cave and you're going to end up having two. Okay, so what do you want to do, right? It's having these, it's like you're having multiple, what is it called? Oh my God, the word just escaped me. When you put everybody in a room with somebody that's an addict, oh my God. Intervention. You're having like these mini interventions with yourself all throughout the day. That is an act of self-love because we are operating from our future self, not our current entitled self. Okay, so it's kind of like thinking about the greater good versus what we want right now in the moment. I may want this right now in the heat of the moment, but it's not good for future me because if I continue to have this behavior, that behavior compounds and builds, and then I end up gaining weight and I end up not resolving the issues. And the issues are not the gaining the weight. The issues are I didn't know how to set boundaries because I didn't know how to love myself enough in order to set boundaries so that I stopped gaining weight and emotionally eating all the time. All right, so the last part that we're going to talk about today is how do I love myself if I hate my body? How in the world do I love myself if I am so disgusted in the skin that I'm in? Been there, and I understand, and I get it. You're not going to automatically love yourself, right? But you're going to start engaging in behaviors of someone that does love themselves. So everything I talked about here today, setting boundaries, standing up for yourself, making those appointments, taking up space, operating from what your future self wants to be. All of those things are acts of self-love that you can start doing now, even though you hate the skin that you're in. In order to do that, when you start doing those things, it's going to start to build love with yourself, and it's going to start to build confidence, and it's going to start to build like, oh, wow, I can do these hard things. Oh, wow, like I can lose weight. Oh, wow, I can stand up for myself. Oh, wow, I can do blah, 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 blah. Like it's going to build your confidence. And the more you build your confidence before you feel ready, the more you're going to do these things over and over and over and over again. So yeah, self-love is so important. Remember, weight loss is not a prerequisite to earn self-love. You've earned self-love just because you're here today, because you exist. So you have to start doing things that someone who truly loves themselves would do. You know, and it's not always easy decisions, guys. Think about this. Like, I know I use parenting a lot because it's a big part of my life, right? And most important job I have. And okay, so there was many examples. I'm going to use this one. So because my daughter's type 1, every quarter she has to see the endocrinologist. It's just the way it is when you're diabetic. And so at least once a year, that also requires blood testing because there's other autoimmune disorders and things that they have to check your thyroid and all that. So we go to the appointments. They're in the hospital. Downstairs is the lab. One time that it was ordered, I gave her the option and I said, hey, do you want to go downstairs right now and go ahead and get it done? Or do you want to come back? Oh, I want to come back. You know, of course a kid doesn't want to go down and have their blood drawn. It's terrifying. She was like 6 at the time. And of course I kept putting it off. Next thing I know, it's a year later and we never got the blood work done because I was so scared to upset her. I was so scared and maybe there was some PTSD there for me as well with just what we all went through with diagnosis and the shots and and having to hold your child down is not a pleasant experience, and having to have yourself and a nurse and someone else holding your kid down is awful. And so I thought, I love her so much. I don't want to put her through that. And then this last appointment we went to, and I said, hey, the doctor had mentioned, you need to get this blood work done. I'm like, okay, you know what? We made this trip all the way here to the hospital. We're here today. You're home. You can do this. So this last time I was like, no, this is where it gets hard. This is that unconditional love that doesn't always feel easy. And on the surface, it doesn't always feel loving because that's going to give pain to that person. But I also know I have to operate from her future self of like, what if they found something or it's too, you know what I'm saying? Like going back to the doctor's appointment thing. So it's like, no, because I love you so much, I'm making this decision for you that we're doing this today, even though I know the fallout that's coming, the tears, the freak out, maybe having to hold you down. Like I know it's coming and I'm so anxious about it, but I have to put all that to the side because the greater good is doing the blood work so that we can have the test results and breathe a sigh of relief or have a plan to do something, right? So to her in that moment, it doesn't feel very loving. And it's hard as a parent because you just want to be loved and liked and you don't want to inflict pain on your kid. But I use that as an example because sometimes the things that we personally have to do as well for ourselves, like going to the doctor even, getting our own blood work done, right? Going and getting an echocardiogram on your heart myself, like it's not easy. It's terrifying because we're so afraid it's going to hurt or I don't want to know the results, but we are hurting our future self. So we have to operate from the greater good of our future. I may not want to do this today, but how relieved will I feel that I scheduled my pap smear, got it done, and my results came back good. And if they don't come back good, it's okay too, because now you can have a plan, right? So acts of self-love may not always feel warm and fuzzy and loving, but when you think about them from your future self, they do. Just like food choices. We want to eat what we want to eat now, but if you keep doing that, you're never going to get where you want to be. So if you make a harder choice to say, you know what, today I'm going to skip the Cadbury egg. I'm going to make some rice and chicken. We're not doing takeout and call it a day. It may not feel exciting. It may not feel delicious, but we don't need to have a delicious, 5-star chef moment every single day. We don't need to do that. We don't. So sometimes the monotony, the simplicity, all of that stuff is what we need. And self-love does not always feel rainbows and butterflies. It's not supposed to. The real self-love, not the surface level stuff. I'm not talking about going to the nail shop. I'm not talking about going and getting your hair done. I'm talking about setting boundaries. Having to have a conversation with someone, a fierce conversation with someone to say, listen, when you say this to me or when you do this around me, I don't like it. That's scary. It's vulnerable, right? Because that person can do one of two things. Say, oh my God, I didn't realize I was doing that. Or two, they're so damn narcissistic that they're going to be like, what are you talking about? And they stop talking to you or silent treatment or whatever. But also, that is giving me data to say, do I want this person around me? I know I'm worth more than that, right? So self-love is not always fluffy, okay? It's going to be a journey. It's going to be a challenge, and we have to do it before we're ready. We don't just earn self-love. We build self-love. We don't earn self-love. We build it, and we build it over time. And so I hope this episode, you got some kind of nuggets out of this that you can apply to your own life. And I'm going to start to go ahead and wrap this up here. Let's stay connected after the episode. The best way to do that is please get on my email list. When you get on my email list, you also get a free Irresistible You action plan. Make sure you do that. You can also follow me and stay connected on Instagram at Irresistible Icing. I post daily stories over there behind the scenes with just my personal life and the podcast. And thirdly, if you want to get enrolled in the Irresistible You program and you want to, take this podcast a step further, I encourage you to go ahead and enroll. That link is down in the show notes. If you have questions, please reach out to me, either through a DM on Instagram. My email is also in the show notes as well. And if you'd like to support the podcast, you can do that by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcast. Or if you'd like to support the podcast in other ways, there's a link in the show notes as well, where you can contribute financially and donate a coffee, which keeps the podcast running. Because it's a lot that goes into this, and I appreciate you guys being here. Also, supporting the podcast, it can be, another way to do that is just share it. Please share it with someone. If you know someone that would benefit, please send them the link, let them know about it, and send it out. That will help so much. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I hope you guys have an amazing week. I will see you in the next episode. Until then, stay irresistible. Bye, guys.